Night after night, Anayan would sit by her window and watch a strange sight. Something small and round would drift across the pond in her garden, leaving a faint glow in its wake, only to vanish beneath the water's surface without a trace. And Nayan couldn't help but wonder what was out there. So one evening, she grabbed her desk lamp and followed the mysterious orb's path. She moved through the tall grasses, careful not to disturb them, until she reached the edge of the pond. There she leaned over and shone her lamp into the dark water, half expecting to see a fish or some other aquatic creature. Instead, what she saw was a boy. He sat cross-legged on the bottom of the pond with his head resting on his knees. His hair was long and tangled like seaweed, and a faint glow surrounded him like the light of a dropped lotus seed. And Nayan nearly jumped out of her skin. Startled, the boy looked up and saw the beam of her lamp. Then in a flash, he vanished. And Nayan stared dumbfounded at the spot where he had been sitting, wondering if she had imagined the whole thing. But then she noticed something peculiar. In the soft mud at the edge of the pond, there were two small indentations, just like those left by a dropped lotus seed. And sure enough, when she shone her lamp down into the murky water, she could see two more faint glows, one in each hole. They looked exactly like the boy, only smaller and more translucent. The realization dawned on Anine. The glowing orbs were the boy's soul fragments. They had fallen out of his body somehow and now couldn't return because of her light. Suddenly, the boy reappeared, and this time he was in distress. "Please," he cried out, his voice echoing through the pond like ripples on the water. "Please return my seed so I can bloom." Then, with a flick of his wrist, he sent another fragment flying toward Anayan. It zoomed past her ear, almost like a bullet, and lodged itself into the base of a nearby tree. She turned to see that the trunk of the tree was covered with intricate patterns, each one identical to the markings on the spirit's back. Startled by what she had seen, Anheim didn't know what to do. She tried reasoning with the spirit, asking him to calm down and explain what was happening, but he was too distraught. In a panic, he shot off again, disappearing into the pond. Realizing that talking to him wasn't an option, Anheim decided to act. Carefully, she walked to the tree and examined the embedded spirit. Its glow was faint and flickering, and she could feel its panic radiating through the wood. If she wanted to help this spirit, she needed to act quickly. But as she reached for it, the remaining fragment suddenly detached itself from the tree and flew directly at her. She flinched, bracing for impact, but instead of hurting her, the fragment merged with her hand, sending a jolt of energy through her entire arm. With a start, she pulled her hand away, staring at it as if it were some kind of wild animal she had just tamed. She felt different somehow, lighter, as if something had awakened inside of her. As if sensing her change of heart, the spirit in the tree shimmered and pulsed with a renewed energy. Then, with a final burst of speed, it launched itself from the bark and disappeared into the pond. Seeing this, Anian knew what she had to do. She ran to the shore and waded into the shallow water, calling out for the spirit to come back. When it heard her voice, it surfaced, revealing the form of a beautiful woman with flowing black hair and eyes like polished obsidian. She was ethereal and elegant, yet something was clearly bothering her. Realizing that the spirit wasn't hurt, and Nayan let out a sigh of relief and smiled warmly. This gave the spirit a start. She wasn't angry, and the spirit's panic subsided somewhat. With a gentle voice, Nayan asked her name and why she was in the pond. At first, the spirit was hesitant to answer, but eventually she confessed. Her name was Tu, and she was a lotus spirit who lived in the pond. But because Anheim had shattered her concentration, she had lost 2 of her 6 lotus seeds, which meant she wouldn't be able to bloom at all. When Anheim heard this, she felt a pang of sympathy for the spirit. But before she could say anything, Tu panicked and dove back into the water, disappearing from sight. This made Anheim realize that she had to act fast. If Tu couldn't bloom, her soul would be trapped in the mortal realm, and she would suffer for eternity. And so Anhine began a desperate search for the missing seeds. She scoured the bottom of the pond, but they were nowhere to be found. And just when she was about to give up, she remembered the imprint in the soft mud. Could the seeds still be in the pond? She went back to the shore and waded in, kneeling down and carefully examining the muddy bottom. Sure enough, she could see the imprints of 2 lotus seeds. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get them out. Just as she was about to lose hope, she remembered the spirit's words, "Please return my seeds so I can bloom." She realized that the spirit hadn't asked her to pull the seeds out of the pond. She only wanted them back, so Anhine had an idea. Quietly, she got up and went home to get her tools. She carved a small indentation in a piece of wood that looked exactly like a lotus seed. Then she returned to the pond and gently placed it in the mud. She repeated this process until she had 2 tokens, each shaped like a seed. Then she placed them side by side in the imprints left by the real seeds. 2 watched from the water, curious to see what Anhine was doing. As soon as the tokens were placed, a surge of energy shot out from them and merged with the imprints, causing them to glow brightly. Then slowly, almost as if guided by an invisible hand, the imprints began to rise. One by one, the pieces of wood ascended from the pond, each one leaving behind a faint trail of light that led directly to 2. Touched by this display of kindness, Vi's fear and panic began to fade away. She realized that Anhine wasn't a threat and that she actually wanted to help. With a grateful smile, 2 extended a hand towards Anhine and said, "Thank you for returning my seeds. Now I can finally bloom." And with that, she dove into the pond and resurfaced, revealing a beautiful lotus flower with 6 perfect petals. 2 had bloomed, and the sight was truly breathtaking. Anhine stood mesmerized, watching as the lotus swayed gently in the breeze. And in that moment, 2 turned to Anhine and said, "You are a kind and compassionate person. I am honored to have met you." Then she closed her petals for the night, leaving Anhine to marvel at the beauty of the lotus. As the moon rose higher in the sky, Anhine realized that she had learned something very important that night. Sometimes the things we fear the most turn out to be the things we need the most. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to face our fears and reach out to others with love and compassion. With a newfound sense of courage, Anhine returned home, knowing that she would never forget the night she met the lotus spirit. From that day forward, Anhine kept a close eye on the lotus pond. She would often sit by the water's edge, watching the lotus flower bloom and knowing that she had made a true friend in 2. Their bond had been forged in the face of fear and uncertainty, but it had grown into something beautiful and enduring. And as the years passed, the memory of that night became a guiding light for Anhine, reminding her to always be kind, compassionate, and brave in the face of adversity.